Over the last 60 years, V8 engines have dictated the performance graph of cars across the globe. In America, naturally aspirated V8s have shaped the iconic muscle car legacy as we know it. Today, there are very few naturally aspirated V8s, but back in the 60s and 70s, they were abundant. The likes of Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, and Pontiac engines were V8 by default. But even among the plethora of common, naturally aspirated V8s of the golden muscle car era, a few special ones have stood out due to their exclusive nature. These engines were mostly created as experimental or project builds for NASCAR and drag racing purposes. However, the V8 fever was also prevalent beyond American soil, since the world's smallest production V8 was an NA motor from Ferrari. Here's more trivia and features on the rarest, naturally aspirated V8s ever produced. This engine is quite interesting because it was one of the early adopters of the fuel injection feed system for American V8 cars. In fact, the 1954 Bonneville, which was equipped with this engine, was the first fuel-injected Pontiac production model ever made. The injection system was a mechanical unit built by Rochester, hence the name. During this time period, the Chevy Corvette also offered an optional system similar to a fuel injection unit, but it was Pontiac that had the upper hand by offering it as a standard option. The 347 cubic inch V8 atop, which Pontiac offered its first ever FI unit, was actually a stroked version of the 317 V8. Apart from the rare FI system, it was also offered with the then-framed tri-power 3.2-barrel carburetor setup. This replaced the 317's dual-quad setup. As for the FI-equipped Rochester V8s, there isn't an exact production figure for this engine, but various sources, including Victorville, Daily Press, and Motor City class cars, state that less than 1,000 units were made. Of these, 447 were equipped in the 1957 Bonneville convertibles. The rest of the 347 V8 inventory found its way into various cars, including NASCAR race cars. This engine was Ford's answer to Chrysler's mighty 426 Elephant Hemi V8. Ford wanted to assert NASCAR dominance, an arena where the Elephant Hemi shone brightly. Hence, the Camaro V8 was created with many shared components, including the high-performance side oiler block Ford used to race at the Le Mans. This engine had an idler shaft that replaced the camshaft, resulting in the engineers filling all the remaining camshaft-bearing oiling holes. This V8's cast iron heads were carved with hemispherical combustion chambers, which means that the Ford Camaro V8 was a Hemi engine on its own terms. It also has a single overhead camshaft for shaft-mounted roller rocker arms. This engine had many cool features. The valves were made of stainless steel and the exhaust section was filled with sodium to prevent valve heads from burning due to extreme temperatures. This engine also came with a very long timing change of 6 feet. Unfortunately, this engine was not sold in a production car, but was only offered as a crate. Ford stuffed this Chrysler Hemi rival in factory experimental cars like a 1965 Galaxie, 500M Code, Camaro, and the Era Cobra 426 SC. This engine started life powering the Suzuki Hayabusa. 2, actually. The madmen at Radical Motorsport combined 2 Hayabusa blocks to create a 2.7-liter V8. According to Radical Precision Engineering, this is the most compact production racing engine out there. This is clearly evident, especially when you look at how aggressively minimal and compact the SR8 sports car is. Coupled with an in-house developed 6-speed sequential gearbox, this 2.7-liter V8 propels the SR8 from 0 to 60 in an impressive 2.8 seconds. The top speed hits 175 miles per hour. In 2005, a Radical SR8 beat the Nürburgring lap record on road-legal Dunlop Dyrza track tires. According to the Radical Sports Car Registry, This engine is used only in the SR8 track-ready sports car, and only 273 units were made. This is the rarest Pontiac engine ever produced as well, joining the American big block race in the 1960s. The high-revving 421 V8 was a race-ready crate engine. A total of 88 of these Super Duty engines were supplied as crate engines. 155 units were used in the Catalina Super Duty, and 16 units were equipped in the Grand Prix SD. This race-ready engine came standard with an aluminum intake manifold. 2 fuel feed system options were available, a 4-barrel unit that offered enduring performance similar to the NASCAR version, and a dual-quad carb unit that bumped up the power to 468 horsepower. This engine was created in 1995 to fill the void of a high-performance Mustang. Ford took the iconic 351 V8 from the F-150 lighting performance truck and souped it up to pump out 300 horsepower and 365 pound-feet. This was done by increasing the compression ratio to 9.2 to 1. This engine also got more aggressive camshaft timing, a larger diameter air meter body, and increased cooling capacity. This engine was much taller than the stock engine in the 1995 Ford Mustang. So to make space, the 1995 Mustang SVD Cobra R has a distinctive and a huge bulge on its hood, like those drag spec cars. Power was sent to the rear wheels via a Tremec 3550 5-speed stick shift that ran a tighter final drive ratio of 3.27 to 1. The L88 Chevy V8 was manufactured for just 3 years and was equipped only in the Corvettes of this time frame. This engine used the big block as other V8s in Chevy's lineup, but its beefed-up internals helped it churn out 430 horsepower. It came with a forged steel cross-drilled crankshaft connected to forged connecting rods. Aluminum pistons were used with floating pins to help minimize friction. The L88 had a higher compression ratio of 12.5 to 1 compared to the top-spec L36 and L72 427 V8s from Chevy. The L88's aggressive nature was complemented by its solid lifter camshaft, which has an insane lift value of 0.584 inches. Extensive aluminum was used in the engine internals to reduce weight. The cylinder heads alone shaved off about 70 pounds from the engine's overall weight. This engine was introduced in 1963 as a reboard version of the Ford 390 V8. The top oiler name was because of how oil was delivered to the engine internals. In this engine, the oil was delivered first to the camshaft, valve train, and then the crank. Another version of this engine, the side oiler, sends oil to the crank first and then to the cam and valve train. Other cool features of this V8 include a thickened cast iron block to withstand its high compression ratio. These 427s also used a steel crankshaft to endure extreme stresses and temperatures. This engine was designed for racing purposes and hence had many performance parts from the factory. It was only offered in 1964 in the limited-run Thunderbolt Fairlane model. Only 100 units were made, and these monstrous Fords could do 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. Considered the greatest Chevy performance car of all time, the '69 ZL1 Camaro was the brainchild of Fred Gibb and Dick Harrell. This all-aluminum V8 is based on the iconic Corvette L88, but was revamped with some serious engine upgrades. Like all other Hemi rivals, the ZL1-equipped Camaro was intended to outrun the Elephant V8-powered race cars on the drag strip. For moderate road readiness, this engine was beefed up with cast iron sleeves in the aluminum block. The main bearing bulkheads were also souped up. Various bolts and stud threads across the engine were lengthened for added rigidity and strength. Initially, 50 units of the ZL1 equipped Camaros were delivered to Gibb via his Copo order. Other Chevy dealers made the remaining 90 Copo orders. With just 69 ZL1 Camaros made, this rare Chevy is worth up to $850,000 for a Concours condition model. This engine transformed the '63 Impala into a mean and rare American muscle car. The Impala was an entry-level land yacht with loads of space on the inside and a cozy riding experience. However, the Z11 has taken things in a very different direction for the Chevy. The Z11 option was created for drag racing and NASCAR enthusiasts. This option souped up the already capable 427 V8 with a longer stroke, a two-piece high-rise aluminum intake, and dual 4-barrel carbs. It came with a tweaked induction system to suck in more air. All of these bits and a high compression ratio of 13.5:1 helped the Impala Z11 V8 churn out an impressive 430 horsepower and 575 pound-feet. The most powerful ram air engine that couldn't be. The Ram 85 was never mass-produced into a production car, but about 25 of these rare V8s were manufactured and sold as crate engines. 4 versions of the Ram Air V were intended to be produced by Pontiac. These were a 5.0-liter V8 for the Trans Am, a 6.0-liter V8 for NASCAR applications, a 6.5-liter V8 for standard Firebirds and GTOs, and a monstrous 7.0-liter V8 for drag racing purposes. The 5.0-liter unit is the rarest of the bunch and has found its way onto a bunch of road-going Pontiacs. One example is a 1969 Trans Am 303 Ram Air 5, sold at an auction via Meckham's for $143,000. This engine also had tricks to outclass the legendary 426 Hemi up its sleeve as well. But due to bad timing and changes in homologation rules, Pontiac couldn't launch this engine in its full glory. This is the rarest naturally aspirated engine ever made, and it also happens to be the rarest small block V8 in a Chevy muscle car. This engine was primarily created for Chevy to take part in the SCCA Trans-American Racing Series, which had a cap of 302 cubic inches for the engine size. The result of this endeavor was the Z28 package, but Chevy wanted to push further, and that's how the Hemi 302 came into the picture. Developed by the shop of famed NASCAR racer Smokey Yunick, the 302 was beefed up with Hemi heads, bespoke pistons, and updated air intake, and new exhaust ports. K-Dog Films' YouTube channel got a rare chance to talk to the owner of one of 3 302 Hemi V8 equipped Camaros. Marvin mentions it's a Hemi 302 V8 prototype engineered by Smokey Yunick, the first of its kind. It's also the only 1968 Camaro with this engine option. Well, there you have it, the rarest naturally aspirated V8 engines ever produced. Have you missed any more? What engines did you think should be in this list instead? Comment down below and let's discuss. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button to keep you updated on our future uploads. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one.